community is that it touched me deeply. To see the wonderful children that are a part of this community, to see the resilient and wonderful parents that are a part of this community, to see their lives, their challenges, their triumphs, their victories, and everything they go through. It was a matter of seeing God in that situation. I have not seen as much God as I have seen in the Sen community. And they have touched me in a deep way. And so I salute them tonight, the children, the parents, the volunteers. And I pray that one day, that as we become more aware of the special needs community and the Sen community, that we become more inclusive in our communities. I dream of a day when our Sen children and parents receive the support, the empathy, and the compassion which is their God-given right. You see, I was reading an article, and it's really interesting because language shapes our thought. And many times, this special needs community is referred to as neurodivergent. And the article I was reading, the author was opining that divergent from what exactly? Is there a normal? If we look at it from jurisprudential, yes, there is a normal in jurisprudence. But that only applies to the fact of our responsibilities and our rights, not even our rights, our responsibilities. But anything outside the jurisprudential scope, is there a normal? So she opines that rather than using the term neurodivergent, we move to neurodiversity. And that resonates with me. Because when I look around this room today, when I look at myself, we are all diverse in our own ways. Each and every one of us was not created the same. And this diversity is a beautiful thing. Why? Because only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is unity and uniformity. Everything other than Him is beautiful multiplicity returning back to Him. And therefore, when I look around at our diversity, I see and I feel that His expectation of us as a community in our diversity is to embrace that diversity and come together in unity. And to love each other, and to care for each other, and to show empathy to one another in that unity in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I salute my friends in the Yasin community in the UK, in the special needs community here in Canada, and to all special needs communities, both the beautiful children, the parents, and the volunteers all over the world. Please let's salawat. Very quick recap from yesterday's talk. We began our series by identifying the fitrah. The fitrah is that natural mercy that Allah put in each and every being, which allows us to be aware of Him and allows us to return back to Him, which forms a type of container. We then moved on to identify the seven core virtues, or the seven types of people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explicitly has identified that He loves in the Quran. Can anyone tell me, anyone remember what they are? No problem. So the first one is taqwa. The second one, Ṣabr. The third one, tawakkul. The fourth one, qist. The fifth one, ihsan. The sixth one, almost there, tawbah. And the last one, tahara. We identified that our fitrah contains all seven of these virtues, even if in potential. And we realized that Allah's mercy is so vast to us. In addition to giving us our fitrah to be attached to Him, He instilled these seven virtues inside of us so that we don't need to go looking anywhere for them and try to attain them from Him. They exist in us even in potential. It is on us then to identify our fitrah, to awaken our fitrah, to find these virtues and to nurture them and uncover them and grow them one by one. We talked about taqwa last night. We talked about taqwa as the first awakening consciousness of our fitrah, God consciousness. Now, I want to pause here again because I have to emphasize this point. These virtues that we are going to, that we have discussed and are going to continue to discuss, each virtue, even the fitra and the insan al-kamil, each of them are vast and deep subjects. Each of these concepts require at least 20 lectures. What we're doing here is providing an introduction. And even the introduction that I'm providing is from one perspective of it. So I would encourage you to go back and look at these concepts because they are innately part of us. They're not separate from who we are. So we talked about how taqwa, that beautiful consciousness, can become more than just trying to be conscious of displeasing Allah. But rather we can, from a place of love, move that consciousness such that it is a matter of fidelity. That we want to do right by Allah and we don't want to do wrong by Him. Why? Because we love Him and because He loves us. Please recite a salawat. Tonight, we move into the concept of Ṣabr. Ṣabr is a difficult one for me. And the reason why Ṣabr is a difficult one for me is because it is deeply personal to me. Very deeply personal. I made a promise to you all on the first night that I would bring every part of me into our series, into our space. And I also invited you to bring every part of you into this space. Every part of me also includes my vulnerability. And it's hypocritical for me to sit here and to invite you to bring all of yourselves and to invite you to bring your vulnerability if I don't bring my vulnerability. So Ṣabr is very, very personal for me. And the reason why Ṣabr is very personal, I'll share a personal anecdote. At the age of 12, some of you will know, some of you won't. At the age of 12, my late father met with an industrial accident. In that accident, he lost his left arm and suffered from third-degree burns. I remember going to the hospital, and in the hospital, he had undergone surgery at that time. And after surgery, when he was coming out of the recovery room and was being wheeled to his room in the ward, I saw him for the first time. Due to the burns and due to the trauma of the injuries, I didn't recognize my father, but I knew he was there. And in that moment, I was so overcome with emotion and grief that I very quietly turned around and walked the other way. And in walking the other way, I'll never forget St. Michael's Hospital. We were at one end of the hall, and after I saw what I saw, in my mind, it just kept repeating, "This can't be my dad. This can't be my dad." I turned around, and tears streaming down my face, just walked the other way. And when I walked the other way, there were a bunch of uncles from the community. Allah bless the ones who are alive and bless the souls of the ones who have passed. But one of the uncles realized what was going on and followed me. And in following me, I remember putting his hand on my shoulder. And he said to me, he said, "Son, you need to be strong. You need to be strong." And in that moment, in a very formative period of my life, it was ingrained into me very deeply that patience is strength. That conflation followed me for over 3 decades of my life. And I have to clarify, the uncle who came to comfort me, this is not about blaming him. It's got nothing to do with him. What he knew in that moment, with his sincerest of intention, he tried to pass on to me. But how it landed with me became something else. The conflation between sabr and strength became so ingrained in me, like I said, over 3 decades. It was ingrained inside of me. What it meant to me in those moments is that any type of difficulty, any type of anything, I had to suppress my emotions and rely on strength. Suppress my emotions, rely on strength. It got to a point where it wasn't even about the difficult moments in life. It got to the point where even the happy moments in life, suppress my emotions, rely on strength. Suppress my emotions, rely on strength. The cycle continued to the point where even what I thought was patience became impatience. Through the course of my life, rather than responding to situations, because I had suppressed my emotions, I reacted to situations. There's a difference. Responding to situations, reacting to situations. It got to a point that it was so ingrained inside of me. Sabr is strength. Strength means suppressing your emotions. That when I met people who were genuinely suffering, genuinely facing difficulties, that rather than being patient with them, I became impatient with them. Because in my mind, I had wired myself to believe patience is strength. And so when I saw genuine human suffering in front of me, I reacted. Why can't you be more patient? Why do you have to cry? Why do you have to make a scene? Why do you have to be vulnerable? So yes, patience is very personal to me. It wasn't until 2006, 2007, somewhere around there, when I migrated to the holy city of Qom for Hausa studies. Up until then, there were many things that happened in between. Even the passing of my father. Passing of my father took place in 2001. 2001, my father passed away. I cried only once after he passed away. And even those tears were not tears that were attached to my genuine emotions. Those tears were just tears of exhaustion. And even the times I cried in between those tears were not tied to my deep emotions. Rather, they were tears of trying to change things that I could not change. So when I migrated to the holy city of Qom in 2006, which is where I met my teacher, that is when I began my healing journey. And that's a long story, which we'll talk about for another day. But the first words he said to me in my healing journey, and the beginning of my healing journey, and something I hold dear to myself, وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي, is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that I breathe into you my spirit. And so began my healing journey. Please recite salawat. Tonight when we look at Ṣabr, right? As I've explained to you in my own personal anecdote, sometimes we think it means suffering in silence, enduring pain without hope, being strong for everyone whilst breaking inside. But, my beloved souls, what if I told you Ṣabr is not about becoming stone, but about becoming water, fluid, responsive, to find its way and navigate its way around life's difficulties. And so we challenge the common misconception. How many of us have been carrying the heavy burden of thinking that to be patient means to be silent in our suffering? How many of us believe Muslims don't feel frustrated, don't struggle with difficult people, don't get their hearts broken by betrayal? Tonight, we lay these crushing expectations to bed once and for all. My promise to you tonight is that we will explore how real Ṣabr is like a spring of fresh water in the desert. It feels the heat, it feels the sand, it feels the dryness, yet it continues to offer life to itself and those around it. We'll witness how one of our beloved Imams, Imam al-Qadim tonight, transformed bitter hatred into sweet friendship through the alchemy of divine patience. And we'll see how the same sacred strength reached its most beautiful expression when Imam Hussein, in his story, displays it. Please recite a salawat. The Quranic foundation of Ṣabr. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu Ista'inu bis-sabr was-salat, inna Allaha ma'as sabirin. O you who have faith, seek help in sabr and prayer. Indeed, Allah is with the sabirin. Sabr is like a tree. Is like a tree that its roots are so deep that it touches the divine water table. It is attached to that divine water table. It sways when the storm comes. Branches crack, leaves fall, it goes side to side. But it doesn't break because it is attached to that divine source. In other words, that patience, that divine patience, does not mean that we don't suffer. It does not mean that we do not acknowledge our suffering. It does not mean that we don't express that suffering. But we do so, and also understand we are attached to the divine because it's okay as human beings. The divine has given us permission to be in this way. Please recite a salawat. Sabr is one of those concepts, when we look at it from the standpoint of the fitrah and its existence in the fitrah, it is one of those examples which is most manifest. What I mean by most manifest is that if we look at taqwa, is not so manifest in the sense that we've been conditioned to believe that taqwa is something to contain. But sabr is there for everybody. Each and every person sitting in this room has practiced a form of patience and perseverance in every part of their life or some part of their life. So it is very manifest within the fitrah. In fact, I would say sabr is one of those virtues that exist in the fitrah, and even in potentia, I would say the potentia is probably when we are in the wombs of our mothers. Once we come out, sabr begins. And very manifest. Every human essence carries the sacred strength. We see it in a mother's love that never gives up, in a child's persistence, in the way broken hearts somehow find the courage to love again. Sabr is not something foreign, as we said. Now, when we look at sabr, we look at an active resilience and a passive resilience. The way that I was conditioned, and I don't know about you, is that it was predominantly a passive resilience, not something active. But here's the healing truth that will set our hearts free. Allah does not want us to become statues. He does not want us to become statues and still in our suffering. Allah wants us to become like His mercy Himself, responsive, caring, present to our suffering, even when we're overwhelmed by it. True sabr weeps with those who weep, fights against injustice, puts down boundaries against abuse, and refuses to accept what cannot be changed. All whilst a deep trust in divine wisdom. When our beloved Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to us, indeed Allah is with the sabirin, He's offering us the most tender promise in existence. What is He saying? We go back. Because we are of the sabirin already, because we practice sabr, then surely Allah is with us. Therefore, we will never face life's storms alone. Inna Allaha ma'as sabirin. It's beautiful because as I said, each and every one of us on a level have practiced sabr. And because we have practiced sabr, we are of the sabirin. And because we are of the sabirin, surely Allah is with us in all our difficulties, present, waiting there, to hold us, to embrace us, to heal us, to nurture us, to comfort us. Please recite a salawat. Understanding false sabr. There is a wounded understanding of patience that has broken many beautiful hearts. The belief that to please Allah, we must swallow our pain, accept every injustice, and smile whilst our souls are screaming. This false patient whispers lies. What lies does it whisper? Number one, good people don't feel angry about wrong. Good people don't feel angry about wrong. An abuse victim doesn't feel angry about their abuse. If you really trusted Allah, this wouldn't hurt so much. That's number two. Number three, just be grateful and stop complaining. Just be grateful and stop complaining. Number four, patient people, they don't need help and support. Patient people got it all figured out. They're well put together. They don't show any emotion. Look how strong they are. My God, after going through so much, look at how strong that person is. Look how they get on with their day. It's like nothing phases them. Why this type of thinking breaks our spirit? When we confuse Ṣabr with emotional death, the most beautiful parts of our soul begin to wither. Number one, our hearts become closed to others' pain because we've closed our hearts to our own pain. Repeat that. Our hearts become closed to others' pain because we've closed them. Number two, our sense of justice grows silent because we've been taught that caring about wrong is impatience. I'm being abused. I'm being abused. Be patient. It'll get better. I'm being oppressed. Don't worry about it. It'll get better. Number three, our authentic voice disappears. Why? Because we believe Allah only loves us when we're fine. If I get on my musalla or I stand in front of God, I gotta be all right. I gotta show God that I'm all right. That I'm not carrying this. Allah, I can face you because you know what? I got it all figured out. And number four, our capacity for real love weakens because love requires the ability to feel deep. Everything. Difficult emotions, easy emotions. There's such a thing. To feel our emotions deeply. The cost of passive endurance. False patience creates internal wounds that do not heal. The cost of passive, what is it? False patience creates internal wounds that never heal. Resentment builds because our feelings have no outlet. When we're not able to feel, and in turn, if we're not able to express, resentment builds. Resentment builds. Spiritual pride develops because we think we're more patient than others. Irony of that. We suppress our emotions, we stop feeling, we become strong, we think we're patient, and then we come across someone who's vulnerable. We have no tolerance for them because we can't feel. This is how we destroy empathy. This is how we destroy compassion. We lose touch with Allah's justice because we've stopped caring about wrong. You cannot care about justice if you stop feeling. Suddenly, if you've killed your emotions, where is the feeling? Where is the room to feel oppression? Where is the room to feel injustice? We become unable to help others because we've lost empathy for struggle. We've lost empathy for our own struggle. Lost empathy for our own struggle. How is it then we can show empathy for others? In our Islamic theology, there's a phrase they use to talk about It's part of proving the existence of Allah. It's فَاقِدُ الشَّيْء لَا يُعْطِي. You cannot, a thing that does not have something cannot give that thing. فَاقِدُ الشَّيْء لَا يُعْطِي الشَّيْء. If you've lost your empathy, then how can you give empathy? It's not possible. If you've lost compassion for yourself, how can you give compassion to others? Real sabr is not about eliminating our beautiful heart. It's about bringing that heart into a conscious relationship with divine love. When we feel anger and injustice, we ask Allah to help us channel it towards positive change. When we feel sadness at loss, we ask Him to comfort us whilst we comfort others. When we feel overwhelmed, we ask Him to be our strength whilst we rest in His beautiful care. It starts with being patient with ourselves. I want to give you an insight. Again, going back to my promise to you to bring as much of myself as possible into this space, I want to share a part of my process with you. Every night, or every day, after I sit and speak to you all, I go home to my brother's house. I go home to my brother's house, sit on the sofa. My brother Rizwan is there, my sister-in-law Naila is there, my niece Zara is there, and if they're not running around, Amina and Layla are also there too. We talk about the lecture that was given, how I did, how was it, what are my hang-ups, how do I think I did. I am my own worst critic. I really, really, really am my own worst critic. But what's interesting is that today we were sitting on the sofa and we were just talking about delivery, content, this, that. My sister-in-law said a very nice thing, which I think I needed to hear in that moment. And she just said to me, she said, Yasin, be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Don't be so hard on yourself. And that, for me, that kindness translated into being patient with myself. Being patient with myself. Again, in my process. When I came to you on the first night, I was nervous as hell. Let's just put that out there, right? Nervous because, first of all, there are a lot of uncles and aunties that have known me since I was yay high, right? That's one thing. So, that pressure to perform, right? Then there are a lot of my contemporaries, people I grew up with, again, pressure to perform, right? And then there's so many of you beautiful faces that I've never had the pleasure of meeting before as well too. But it's a lot of pressure. And then I think to myself, I'm like, okay, how's this gonna land? Again, taking you through my process. How's this gonna land? Are they gonna get it? Are they not gonna get it? And in the end, in being patient with myself, I took myself back to a place that, all right, Yasin, you got this. You know why you got this? Because first of all, you know what you're talking about. Otherwise, you wouldn't be invited. Second of all, they think enough of you that they've invited you, so they think you know what you're talking about. So if everybody's on side that I know what I'm talking about, and you guys think I know what I'm talking about, what's there to worry about? Right? So again, process. I mentioned process. Look, I mentioned process because understanding our process is very, very important. In my psychotherapeutic space, we talk a lot about process, what our process is. What our process is internally in how we process emotions, what our process is in how we process the outside world, and how we process everything together. And the reason why is because when we look at our process, it shines a light on us. It shines a light on why we are the way we are, why we react the way we react, why our state of being is our state of being. And there's no value judgment on anybody's process. Your process is your process. But when you take your process, and again, it's not just one process. There's processes running in all of us, right? The idea is to look at our processes and look at what our state of being is with ourselves, with our families, with our societies, and see, okay, well, I've identified my process. And in this particular area, it's really not going so well. So maybe I need to tweak my process. And in that spirit, I share my process with you. And I encourage each and every one of you to try and become in touch with your process. And the reason why I mentioned patience with myself, because it is when we are patient with ourselves, and every part of us, this then gives rise to the ability to be patient with others. And when we are patient with others, it just feeds into a very, very beautiful cycle. Please recite a salawat. And so we move to tonight's case study. And we are looking at a story from the life of Imam al-Qadim. Imam al-Qadim was a man whose patience with himself was at a high level. Therefore, his patience with those around him also resonated and operated at the highest level possible for a human being. This is why I said, if you're patient with yourself, then translates it into patience. So what we're looking at is a story of his in that. In the peaceful outskirts of Medina, where the blessed earth still held memories of the Prophet's footsteps, Imam Musa al-Kazim had a small piece of farmland. It was his place of refuge, where he would go to remember God among the growing things, among nature, where his heart could breathe in the silence away from the noise of the city. One day, as he walked amongst his crops in quiet contemplation, his peace was shattered by a voice filled with venom. A man appeared. His face was twisted with rage. His words like daggers aimed at the Imam's heart. He insulted the Imam, and he insulted the Imam. The insults poured from him like poison from a broken vessel. Attacks on the Imam's person, insulting his family, insulting his ancestors, and on it went. Each word by this man was chosen to wound the Imam. I'm going to pause here for a moment about words. I said it today in the seminar. I grew up believing sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's a load of garbage. Words hurt. They have the power. In fact, sometimes words have the power to hurt more than the sticks and the stones. At least the sticks and the stones will make a cut. You can stitch yourself up, put a band-aid on, and they heal. But words, the wounds that words cause, no comparison. The Imam's companions, who loved him more than their own lives, felt their blood boil in that moment. How dare anyone speak to their beloved leader in this way? They moved forward, ready to defend his honor with their fists, to silence this mouth that dare speak this filth to their Imam. But then came the moment that reveals what true Ṣabr looks like. The conscious choice. The Imam immediately raised his hand, stopping his companions, and said, "Leave him be." He said with calmness that seemed to come from another world. In that instance, he made a choice that would echo through eternity. The choice to transform rather than to retaliate. To respond rather than to react. Instead of responding to hatred with hatred, which I think most of us would do, instead of defending himself or walking away in wounded pride, the Imam did something that demonstrates the deepest level of Ṣabr. He became curious about his attacker. He thought to himself, this man who is attacking me, this level of venom, surely it must come from some deep pain within him, some deep hurt within him. He approached the man with genuine curiosity and interest and asked, how much did it cost to cultivate this land of yours? The man, still seething with hostility, spat back, 100 dinars, and my land is barren. Ah, land is barren. He was having difficulty with his land. And how much do you hope to harvest from it? The Imam continued. his voice carrying not a trace of defensiveness or anger. I don't have knowledge of the unseen, the man said sarcastically. Maybe I'll get 100, 200 dinars for it. Now, the investment and transformation. What happened next should make every heart melt at the beauty of this divine character. Imam al-Qadim reached into his purse and counted out 300 dinars, more than the man's entire investment and the profit that he had hoped for. He placed the money in the man's hand and said, "This is for you and your harvest as well. May Allah grant you more than you hope for." Please recite salawat. The man stood there speechless. His entire script of anger and hatred had just been shattered by an act of generosity so unexpected, so undeserved, that it reached the deepest place of his soul. The change was immediate and profound. The man who moments before is spewing venom at the Imam now falls at the feet of the Imam in gratitude, apologizing. "Forgive me," he whispered. "I didn't know." The Imam helped him to his feet with his gentle hands and said, "Carry on. Carry on with your life. God bless you." The teaching moment. The Imam then turned to his companions, the same ones who wanted to defend him with force, and delivered a lesson that should guide every heart that faces conflict. He says, which of the two options was better? What you wanted to do or what I did? I resolved the matter by being curious and fulfilling the need of the man, because the man clearly had a need that was unmet, and so I fulfilled that need. What this sacred encounter teaches our hearts. Number one, conscious choice in the moment of pain. Notice the Imam's first response when being personally attacked. He doesn't suppress his companion's natural anger or pretend that the attack didn't hurt. Instead, he exercises conscious choice in real time. This Ṣabr as emotional wisdom, feeling the impact while choosing our response from divine consciousness rather than a wounded ego. Number two, curiosity over reactivity. The most revolutionary aspect of the story. Instead of defending himself or counterattacking, the Imam became genuinely curious about his attacker's circumstances. How much did it cost you? How are you doing? Are you okay? This question transformed the entire dynamic of conflict to conversation. From enemy to enemy, to human to human. Teaching through example. The Imam's final question to his companions, which was better, reveals the deepest purpose of authentic Ṣabr. It's not just about enduring difficulty, but about becoming a teacher of divine possibility. Our patient responses to hardship becomes a lesson for others about what humans can become when connected to their divine character. Please recite the salawat. The subject is very vast, and this is but not even a drop in the ocean of Ṣabr. Because time is short, we'll have to move on. But it is a very, very vast subject, and this is but a minute presentation of it. The Ṣabr we witness in Imam al-Qadim's story, feeling deeply while responding wisely, investing in transformation rather than seeking immediate satisfaction, reached its ultimate expression in his great-grandfather, Imam al-Hussein at Karbala. When the people of Kufa invited him, pledged their support, then abandoned him to face Yazid's army alone, his Ṣabr was evident in processing the disappointment without becoming cynical about human nature. How many times are we hurt? How many times are we betrayed? And how many times do we move towards cynicism, towards the entire human race? Very easy. I do it all the time. Continuing to appeal to their conscience even after betrayal. He didn't stop until his last moment, because he also humanized his attackers. He also humanized his enemies, and in doing so was able to continue to to appeal to their conscience right till the very last moment. Some practical applications of building authentic resilience. Number one, feel first, choose second. When facing difficulty, give ourselves permission to feel full impact before deciding how to respond. Say to ourselves, this hurts and that's okay. Now, how can I respond in a way that serves something greater than my immediate comfort or discomfort? Number two, get curious about opposition. Like the Imam asking about framing costs, the farming costs, practice getting genuinely curious about those who are in conflict with you. As we look ahead to tomorrow night, from Ṣabr to Tawakkul, having discovered Ṣabr as an active resilience rooted in our integrated humanity, the next sacred step will be that of trust, Tawakkul, the profound trust of Allah that enables both maximum effort and complete surrender. Maximum effort, complete surrender. Remember these two terms. A beautiful connection, we know from the fitrah of that container, which is a container, taqwa, sabr, onto tawakkul. Tonight we've discovered that true sabr is not about becoming strong, but about becoming like divine mercy itself, feeling deeply whilst responding from love. We witness how Imam al-Qadim transformed hatred into friendship through sacred resilience. That same beautiful sabr, this patient love that persists even when others attack or abandon us, was embodied perfectly in Imam Hussein at Karbala. They had every human reason to leave. Every human reason to leave, talking about his companion. Every excuse to prioritize their own safety. Yet their hearts had learned the secret we explored tonight, that the deepest patience comes from love so strong it cannot be broken by any storm. Let us now witness one of these beautiful souls who refused to leave Imam al-Hussein, a man whose entire life was a testament to sabr that chooses loyalty over safety, love over convenience, and truth over any other consideration. The bond that could not break. The night sky of Karbala was heavy. It had seen sorrow, but not like this. The tents of Imam Hussein were quiet. The campfire burned low. Only the wind moved freely, rustling the flaps of tents, carrying the whispers of approaching martyrdom. Habib ibn Madahir sat near the fire, sharpening his sword. Not with eagerness, but with reverence. His hair was silver now, but his heart still beat with that fire of wilayah. He had traveled far to be there. Some say he galloped from Kufa when he heard the Imam's call. Others say he walked. However he came, he had come. Nothing could keep him from his master. He stood, then approached the Imam's tent and sought permission to enter. Imam al-Hussein welcomed him with a soft smile, the kind that only brothers of the soul share. They sat, not as commander and soldier, but as childhood friends who had walked under the same stars under the Medina skies decades earlier. Habib looked at him. The lines on his face were not from age, but from burden. A burden no man should carry. My master, Habib said softly, I remember when your blessed mother Fatima would call you from her doorway and you would run to her arms. I never imagined I would live to see this day, that we speak like this under the shadow of death. Imam placed his hand on Habib's shoulder lovingly. And I never imagined that you would still be with me, he replied, when others have turned away. They fell silent for a moment. Habib, the Imam said, they will not spare us. Tomorrow, the swords will not differentiate between child and warrior, between the thirsty and the tyrant. Habib nodded. Then let me be the first to fall, my master. The Imam looked at him, his eyes now heavy with tears. No, Habib, you have already given me everything. Your presence is my strength. Your loyalty is my victory. There was no more strategy to discuss. No more battle plans. Only the ache of farewell hovering like a shadow. Habib stood to leave, then paused. Will you allow me, he said gently, to walk back to my tent facing you, for I do not know if I shall ever see you. The Imam stood and nodded, and as Habib stepped back, he lowered his head, not in fear, but in love. That day it is said, that day it is said, the angels wept. Habib's farewell. He came from Kufa when he heard the call, a silver-haired lion, beloved of all. The years had aged his beard and face, but not his fire nor his grace. Through night and dust, he made his way to stand with Hussein on that fateful day. He entered the tent with tearful tears and saw his friend neath Karbala's skies. O son of Zahra, his voice grew low. The pain I feel, you'll never know. I watched you play in Medina's sand. Now death and dust are close at hand. Hussein rose up, his heart in flame, and softly whispered Habib's name. O Habib, your steps have lit my night. In you I see the Prophet's light. They came with swords, with threats, with shame. You came with love and not for fame. Habib then knelt with heart so wide. Let me be first, O Mawla, to die. The Imam wept, his voice was still. You have already climbed the highest hill. I need you now to breathe with me, for your loyalty is my victory. They parted then in hush and prayer, two hearts ablaze with love laid bare. As Habib stepped into the sand, he turned to wave with trembling hand. Permit me, master, he gently pled, to walk away and bow my head. Hussein just watched, eyes brimmed with light, a sun embracing its final night. Allah la'natullahi ala al-qawmi al-zalimin, inna lillahi wa